Let me now turn to the issue of the gunshot residue. Investigators collected gunshot residue test kits from the hands of both decedents as well as from the interior of the subject vehicle above the side front and side rear windows, headliners. Particles highly indicative of gunshot primer residue were found on the hands of Timothy Russell. Particles highly indicative of gunshot primer residue were found on the hands of Melissa Williams. And particles highly indicative of gunshot primer residue were found within the interior of the subject vehicle. This result is consistent with both decedents firing a gun, but it's equally consistent with both decedents not firing a gun. Because shots were being directed into their vehicle at very close range, the findings of gunshot residue in these locations would be expected, whether or not such person in the car was firing a gun. In other words, the gunshot residue testing, those results reveal nothing and tell us nothing in regard to whether or not the subjects had a gun or did not have a gun. Let me turn to the toxicology report. Toxicology report conducted as part of the autopsy indicates that Timothy Russell had a blood alcohol level of .131. He also tested positive for cocaine and nicotine. The toxicology report indicates that Melissa Williams was also positive for cocaine as well as cannabis and nicotine. This report indicates that it is likely that both decedents had recently, within 6 hours of the pursuit and shooting, consumed cocaine. Additionally, the analysis found that the cocaine was likely in the form of crack cocaine and that it appeared that Melissa Williams had been binge smoking the crack. In other words, taking repeated hits to regain a high. Upon searching the subject vehicle, investigators did locate a crack pipe. I would like now to turn to the police department's own rules regarding pursuits. First, let me commend Mayor Jackson and Chief McGrath for conducting an internal review of these tragic events. In fact, I spoke just a few moments ago to Mayor Jackson, who has received a copy of our report, and I had a lengthy conversation with him on the phone about it. But let me commend both of them, both Mayor Jackson and Chief McGrath, for conducting an internal review of these tragic events. This is a very important step, and I would like to discuss some issues that I believe any internal review, frankly, needs to cover. But before going into specific policy violations, I think it's important to understand how the radio transmission network at the Cleveland Police Department is set up, as it contributes to some of the communications failures that we're going to talk about. The Cleveland Police Department utilizes a central dispatch center with each district's patrol unit having a separate radio channel and other specialized channels within each district. Further, each patrol district has a separate dispatcher assigned to monitor and communicate on that district's channel. The dispatcher for each of the districts are physically, though, located in the same room, utilizing separate workstations. The dispatchers are therefore able to speak to one another around and over the cubicles in order to pass along information without using the radio system to do so. Although the ability to link various channels together during an incident spanning across multiple districts theoretically exists, problems with doing so in the past have led to a policy prohibiting that. Therefore, it's the understanding of our investigators that when a cross-district pursuit occurs, which is what this was, a cross-district pursuit, involved officers are supposed to switch to the radio channel of the district where the incident originated. The originating district's dispatcher then handles the communications for the incident as the primary radio channel. Because this incident originated in District 2, therefore, Channel 2 was to be the primary communications channel. However, information regarding the incident physically relayed from dispatcher to dispatcher in the dispatcher center was also rebroadcast over other districts' channels, keeping other officers informed who did not change their radios to Channel 2. Let's start regarding motor vehicle pursuits. The Ohio Revised Code requires each police department to adopt a specific policy of pursuit. Each department has to have this policy, which Cleveland does. Further, the chief of police is required by law to formally advise each peace officer of the pursuit policy adopted by that agency. The Cleveland Police Department has such a policy. It was effective March 1, 2002, and revised August 5, 2010. I would like to now examine this policy as events actually happened on November 29, 2012. First, according to this policy, and I quote from the Cleveland Police Department policy, officers shall not, join a pursuit in progress without permission from a sector supervisor. And then in parentheses, acknowledgement from the central communications system of an officer's intent to join a pursuit shall not constitute permission to join a pursuit, end of parentheses. So again, officers shall not join a pursuit in progress without permission from a sector supervisor. In fact, 59 of the vehicles in the pursuit never asked permission to join the chase. Our investigators found that the sector supervisor during the pursuit, Sergeant Randall Daly, stated that based on radio traffic he was monitoring, he was aware of only the initial 3 police vehicles participating in the pursuit. That's Cleveland Police Department vehicles driven by Officers Nan, Sergeant Coleman, and Officer Hummel. All other pursuit participants joined without receiving permission. While the policy states that any other vehicle that wants to join the pursuit must ask the supervisor for permission, there was no radio traffic requesting permission. And Sector Supervisor Daly said that no other vehicle asked at any time to join. He said in spite of stated policy, it was not unusual for vehicles to join in, and it was an accepted viewpoint that if an officer is asking for help, officers are going to head that way. Let me go to the next part of the policy. Further, the policy states, and I quote, pursuing officers shall immediately switch to the main communications channel of the district of occurrence if operating on another channel. Pursuing officers shall immediately switch to the main communications channel of the district of occurrence if operating on another channel. End of quote. Supervisors who told officers to stop pursuing communicated this on their own district's radio channel, while officers involved in the pursuit said they had switched over to the radio channel of the district in which the pursuit began. Therefore, those officers who were told to stop did not necessarily hear those commands from supervisors. Let me look at another point of the policy. The policy states further, the sector supervisor shall permit no more than 2 police vehicles to directly engage in a pursuit except under unusual and well-articulated circumstances. Based on the radio traffic he was monitoring, Sector Supervisor Daly was aware of only the initial 3 police vehicles involved in the pursuit, which include a vehicle driven by Sergeant Coleman, whose discretion and judgment he said he trusted. It's clear that others failed to follow the policy, since 62 marked and unmarked police vehicles from multiple jurisdictions Cleveland Police Department being the majority, engaged in the pursuit. At the same time, though, Sector Supervisor Daly could not be heard coordinating or actively monitoring the pursuit. He stated that based on the information he had, he believed they had a mobile active shooter. In that kind of a situation, he told our investigators he would not send just 2 to 3 cars, but could not determine how many cars would be enough. He did, however, think that 60 were too many. Fourth, Cleveland Police Department General Police Policy states regarding the emergency response driving, supervisors shall monitor communications and shall disregard backup cars that are responding to an emergency assignment when it has been determined that the situation is under control and the backup cars are not needed, end of quote. Here, without anyone assuming overall control, there is no way for this policy to be followed. During the pursuit, multiple supervisors were within the pursuit and did not exert any authority or relay updates to the central communications system, nor did they communicate to the sector supervisor the number of vehicles involved in the pursuit. Further, several other supervisors did prohibit their officers from participating in the chase. Further, many officers responded to the final scene once they heard that shots were fired, responding to a shooting, not to the pursuit. The few officers who were told to stop but said they were on the pursuit's radio channel, while the order to cease was on their original channel, which they simply did not hear. Sergeant Coleman, who was within the pursuit itself, did not broadcast any instructions on the radio until the pursuit had ended, informing officers to be aware at that time that shots had been fired. In no time did anyone on the radio remind officers to ensure proper backstopping if gunfire did occur, or avoid crossfires, or avoid spontaneous shooting, with the exception of the one comment about the crossfire.